Good afternoon and welcome to BizTech's Asian Midday Market Watch. Our guest today is Vishnu Varathan, Head of Economics and Strategy at Mizuho Bank, coming out of Singapore. Vishnu, as always, on a Monday, great to have you on the show.
My pleasure, Brian. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, and you're all casual today from the office.
Strange as it sounds, yes, I'm more casual in the office.
Now, before we get your insights, Vishnu, let's take a look at how crypto markets are performing and then take a very quick look across the region at how stock markets have performed across the first half of the day. We start with Bitcoin. Bitcoin's at 19,866. It's up 0.32%. Ethereum is at 1,574.99. It's up 1.2%. Now, at regional equity markets, we've got the Straits Times Index, which is up 0.25%. Bursa Malaysia is up 0.05%. Shanghai is up 0.18%. The ASX All Ordinaries is up 0.14%. The Nikkei 225 is down 0.01%. The Hang Seng is down 1.42%. And rounding up the numbers, we've got the Kospi, which is also down 0.3%. Vishnu, it's a mixed bag across the region. Tell us why.
Well, I mean, it does look like there's some underlying caution that's driving markets, primarily due to two factors. One, I think it's a more global factor. You've got Russia turning off the tap on gas to Europe. I think that's got set off a cascade of fears. The first, of course, is the most proximate and profound effect on Europe. How that may sink it into a recession, and how the ECB is caught between a rock and a hard place. As markets expect them to hike rates by as much as 75 basis points this week, and so that impact rippling via Europe to the rest of the world is certainly something worth thinking about. And I think markets are not particularly thrilled by that prospect and what it means for the ongoing recovery. The other is China. Of course, China, you've had lockdowns in Shenzhen. And an extension of lockdown from Chengdu. These things do not bode well in terms of the activity recovery. And I think that factor is also holding back against this backdrop. We have a stronger dollar. Indirectly, a stronger dollar means weaker domestic currencies that may keep imported inflation up for longer as well. So that means policy dilemma in the region is also going to take a little bit of a hit. So against this backdrop, I think the markets are cautious, even as they look at a US jobs data that would allow the Fed to be somewhat less aggressive. So really, the US jobs data that came out should have triggered more unfettered risk asset rally resumption. But I think against the backdrop of Russia and China, the markets are a lot more subdued, if not outright looking for safe havens.
Now, Vishnu, some data that came out this morning sort of gives encouraging confidence to investors, because China's Services Purchasing Managers Index came in at 55.0 compared to the previous months of 55.5. Japan's Purchasing Managers Index came in slightly lower, obviously below 50 at 49.5 in August. Down from 50.3 in July. And Australia's PMI for business activity came in at 50.2, which is lower than July, and it's the slowest rate of growth in 7 months. So what's your take then? Is that cause for more pessimism, or to look at the glass half full, saying not as bad as we thought it was?
Yeah, I like your take on it. Really, I think today people are just afraid of breaking the glass, whether it's half empty or half full. And the point here is for those who want to look at it from a fairly optimistic point of view, there's a case to be made that China has shown that whenever they lift the lockdowns, the services sector can rebound quite a bit. But that's really backward looking. And right now the trouble is there is no clear path out to the other side. We seem to have a series of rolling lockdowns that's going to retard the recovery, push it out much further, and then we'll come to the final destination where the question is, does China have enough stimulus, in its pockets to ensure that they can engineer a strong rebound or not? So those kinds of reservations at the back of people's minds will remain. So my sense is that any half full type of take is probably going to be rather tentative and opportunistic at this point of time. I think a lot more clarity is required on exactly how far global policy tightening will go, what the effect will be in terms of oil and gas prices. So tonight, OPEC will give us a glimpse of that and some impact from that as well. And overall, I think economies remain cautious, especially as they consider the prospects that Europe and China may be descending into a recession already, if they're not already in one, and what that would mean for the rest of the world.
Now, what else should we be watching out for the rest of the week in terms of data or events that could move markets?
We have a plethora of things to watch for, but just to keep it in perspective and to prioritize, I think for those watching Europe with a lot of nervousness, the ECB meeting is worth watching, not just in terms of whether it's a 50 or 75 basis point hike, but also the language that accompanies it, and any other details on the so-called anti-fragmentation tool that can have a lot of bearing on giving support to the euro, only if it's able to. So that's one aspect of it. Of course, we've got a series of second reads on GDP data coming out, but that's really quite backward looking, and I don't think that's going to be of utmost importance at this juncture. Additionally, we probably have to look at the region. We've got the RBA meeting, so what Australia would do. We've got Bank Negara Malaysia that's going to meet as well on the same day as ECB. And I think overall markets will also want to look at what the OPEC is doing tonight. So those to me are really the key events around which we could have markets pivoting one way or another.
Now, Vishnu, as always, thank you very much for your insights and thanks for coming on the show.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me, Brian.
Now, we've been speaking to Vishnu Varathan, Head of Economics and Strategy at Mizuho Bank on BizTech's Asian Midday Market Watch. I'm Brian Fernandez. This video and podcast will be on our website, www.biztech.asia, as well as our social media platforms. It will also be on our syndication partners, TV stations, radio stations, and websites. Thanks for tuning in.